Hello and welcome to our show. You ever have that strange feeling of deja vu? Hello, Mike.
Yes. Hi. Yes. This does seem strangely familiar.
We meet here every day.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's all that it is, all that it ever
Yes.
will be. So we had an interesting discussion today with the sheriff because they had that little Thursday meeting in the back room, the commissioners did, where Arthur O'Hare was leading the discussion about what the various options were for the sheriff.
Mm.
Yeah, it reminded me of Rosemary Paget that would sometimes sit right up there with the commissioners and pretty much act like the fourth commissioner. She would sit at the table the entire time with them instead of like other department heads waiting to be called up. She would just be there. And I don't know, nobody ever had the guts to say, Rosemary, what the heck do you think you're doing? Go and sit in the audience until we're ready for you. And she would just, add in. I mean, she wouldn't vote, but she might as well have been. And they were always deferring to her. She was really the county administrator, even though the people said they didn't want a county administrator. So Arthur O'Hare is now not the chief financial officer. He is the finance director. Okay, whatever. And very much like this thing about how you can have a variety of colors from which to choose. Look, there's a whole rainbow of colors. Arthur O'Hare saying you have red or blue. Hey, no, what about green, orange? You have red or blue. Arthur, who are you to be telling us what our choices are? You're not even elected. Mike?
Yeah, I don't really understand that either. Although I suspect that this is policy. It's something that's probably been discussed between the commissioners and Arthur O'Hare, and as it relates to this article that showed up in the newspaper on Sunday, I believe that. That Arthur O'Hare is just basically spouting the talking points that he heard from the commissioners. That's a theory.
Okay, so what I don't like about all this, here's Arthur O'Hare sitting and talking with the commissioners. What? Okay, so I'm a little bit in a funny position because um, I believe that people should get a chance to say whatever they want. However, when they're representing the government, if you want to be, hello, my name is Arthur O'Hare. Hello, Arthur. He can say anything he wants to in any kind of meeting. But once you're there and you're represented by Jim Moore of the Daily Courier as representing the county government, hey, Arthur, wait a minute. You
Well,
better be sure. Go ahead, Mike.
you know what? I do have an interesting input on that because I think there is a possibility, because this is a very political thing. They understand that a lot of people want that road money to go to the sheriff. It's entirely possible that they're putting this guy out to lay out the policy and as the front man, so that the responsibility for the decision somehow people will not think that the commissioners are the ones actually making the decision. All Arthur O'Hare can do in these backroom meetings and say, hey, as I see it, here are the options. And they can go, well, yeah, that makes sense, or that doesn't make any sense, or whatever. But they're the ones who ultimately make the decision, not him. And for him to go out and speak as though he's speaking for the county is perhaps a little presumptuous on his part.
I would think so. Plus, one of the things, look, we finally got an article out of the Courier. We've been criticizing them. I'm especially criticizing them. It's taken them 3 weeks to get up to speed with all the rest of us. Finally have an article about this. 3 weeks later, and here's Arthur O'Hare telling Jim Moore, who's writing it up like it's gospel, this is a bridge to nowhere. Hey, what? It's not up to Jim Moore or Arthur O'Hare to decide that it's a bridge to nowhere. Plus, I don't think it is, and the sheriff doesn't think it's a bridge to nowhere. Who are these people?
Yes, but you know who does think it's a bridge to nowhere, or at least wants to buttress the perception that it's a bridge to nowhere, is the commissioners themselves, because as we know, after a few people and the sheriff went up and advocated for the money last Wednesday, the commissioners came in and Rob Brandis, and they systematically took the whole thing apart and said, well, they started asking the sheriff a bunch of questions that they knew would put the whole situation in a negative light. Like, well, how long does it take you to hire a deputy and get him on the road? Well, he said, honestly, well, it takes about a year if you're talking about a fresh hire, but we could take a lateral hire, somebody who's already trained, and put them in the position and have them out there in a couple of months. Well,
they're just ignoring that. They just pretend like he never said that.
Yeah, but the whole point of asking the question was to get the negative answer so that they could go, well, that's the reason why we're not going to do that.
Well, and here's the other really strange part. Who is the liaison to the finance director? Cheryl Walker. Who is the liaison to the sheriff? Cheryl Walker. Who is it that said, no way, no how, this is going, I don't want this to happen, blah, blah,
That's Cheryl Walker. Right. Yeah, it's wow. One might think that perhaps she doesn't, trust the sheriff with the money. The thing is,
well, it's not a levy. It's not a levy. There's your first, last, and always answer. Since it's not a levy,
yes,
the whole idea of protecting the people, this is not the main reason behind all this.
Right. No, this is not new money. They want new money. New money. And when I say new money, I mean money that you haven't already paid them out of your own pocket. They want more money from your pocket. That's the ultimate objective. And if they have to, if they're forced to, and they realize that there is a public wave of opinion that, yes, we want these road dollars to go from the public works fund over to the sheriff, then they will begrudgingly do it because for fear of the political consequences. But I think that's exactly the reason why Arthur O'Hare is the guy in this piece and not one of the
He seems to be more than willing to go out there and do this. And Jim Moore ends up writing, it's this redefinition again of what the reality is, because here's what I'm going to have to read this off of the screen.
Okay. And while you're doing that, let me ask the question. If, okay, you're Jim Moore and you're sitting there at the Courier and you think, hey, I need to do a story on this, or you get an email that says, hey, you need to do a story on this. How does he get the idea to talk to Arthur O'Hare? That's something he's coming up with on his own? Did he come to that meeting in the little back room last Thursday, Dale?
Yes.
Oh, he was there. Okay, so maybe
he now shows it. I think that Keith Heck said to him, look, you're just going to have to start showing up at these meetings. Keith is the new chair. Here's what. Now, Arthur O'Hare said a number of things very negative about this plan that's going to go through. This is going to happen. The sheriff thinks it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. Yeah. Mike isn't sure. Mike thinks, well, maybe Mike thinks. We'll let him speak for himself a little later. But yes, right. Stop it. Okay, so here's what Jim Moore writes as gospel truth. This isn't ascribed to anybody. These are the facts of the news story on the front page, according to the Daily Courier. It says, however, because of uncertainties about the amount of federal money, just a second. I had to capture this from.
Don't you hate it when they do that? Why don't you finish the thought in one paragraph instead of going to the next column? What's wrong with you people?
Okay. However, because of uncertainties about the amount of federal money, that would actually be received, Goodwin made a subsequent motion to take $500,000 rather than $1 million. Now that might sound like inside baseball, but here's the point. Did Peggy Goodwin, Mike, decide to change her request of funding for the sheriff from $1 million to $500,000 because of uncertainties about federal funding?
No, not that I'm aware of. The reason
where did he
why,
get up with this? Go ahead.
Well, the reason that I gleaned from what I saw of the budget committee hearings is that not one single other person on the budget committee uh, seconded seconded her call to use the $1 million of road money for deputies. So then she went, "Oh, okay. How about 500,000?" That's how I. That's how I get it. But
She didn't do
somehow,
this because of uncertainties about federal funding. Why is that ending up? That could end up in a bad editorial, but that
mm-hmm.
should not end up on the front page as part of the gospel truth. And
Yeah,
neither
but
should the gospel truth be said to be that that you're Satan worshiper if you question authority.
that's right. Gospel truth. That's good. So no, I mean, there's an obvious reason, because they want that to be the narrative. They want that to be the story that everybody knows on this. Oh, yes, I read in the paper the reason why
It's
they didn't go
false.
with that is yeah, of course it's false. But listen, I mean, this has been my experience. I have been the focus of newspaper attention before, and if there's one thing that I learned from watching just the short little piece of time when that was going on, is they never get anything right. You could tell them something, and you say, "Look into my eyes. I didn't do such and such," and they'll say, "He said to me that he might have done it." I mean, that's how they operate. They just, I don't know why it is that they can't quite get it right. One is a tasty story, and the other one is not very exciting. So
Well, we
maybe they
don't
go
do
for the.
that. If we're not doing that, how come other people feel they have to? Oh, that answers itself.
Well, no.
What
Well,
we do is
listen,
we show you the actual clips of the real people saying these things in their entirety. And the only person that's ever questioned that is Keith Heck, who somehow feels that videotape can't record him correctly.
well, yeah, but Dale, you have said this before, that the Courier has a policy that, as it relates to letters to the editor, that no one will be allowed to criticize local government in there, or if this hasn't been if it isn't the policy now, it has been in the past, and that they actually changed some of the content of your letter to make it mean something completely different from what you originally
They
intended.
did do that.
So,
They did. They changed the content of my letter to the editor, and they told someone else who said, "I want to write an opinion piece." They said, "Okay, but don't tee off on the commissioners." Hey, it's my opinion piece. Who the heck are
right.
you to tell me what to write in my opinion piece?
So
That's
whether
the
or not
editor.
that's yeah, so whether or not that is still a policy or not, it's an undercurrent underneath. So they may try to put on a skin of an objective organization, but they're clearly not. They don't want they don't want to embarrass local government. And listen, you can do stories without embarrassing local government. Just prove the truth, for crying out loud,
Oh, well,
and
that will
let
always
the chips
embarrass
fall.
local government, but okay,
Well,
I know that's the theory.
maybe so. Maybe so.
Look, what I want to know is, and what we started talking about is whether this guy was sent out, he was inflated as a trial balloon, whatever,
Mhm.
um, by puffed up government bureaucrats. We see it in city government. We see it in national government. We see it in county government, where the dialogue is being redefined by unelected bureaucrats. Wait a minute. What happened to the idea, as Peggy Goodwin had said, and Peggy, please, I know you guys love the show. Would you please talk to us so that we can find out a couple of things? One is, where did that number 8 million in the reserve fund, where did that come from? That's a question that we really need to know. From where did that originate? We need to know that. And the other thing is, now Arthur O'Hare is saying, well, it's not 8 million, it's some other kind of million. And he's not even talking about using any of the reserves. He just has moved the whole dialogue over, and I don't know if they're telling him what to do or if he's doing this completely on his own. He's moved the whole dialogue over to new money coming in from the state. Wait a minute. So he said, well, your guess is as good as mine. I'm listening to what he's saying in that meeting. You've seen the video. I mean, it's like 13 minutes. You can see it for yourself entirely in context. He's saying, well, this new money will come in from the state. Well, it begs a couple of questions. One is, if $1 million comes in 1 year from the state, is this the very last time that'll happen? Will this be happening again? Well, that's not defined. And why are we only talking about that and not part of this 8 million or 6 million or $1.95? Why are we not talking about the money that's because they don't want to talk about that? Stop redefining the dialogue according to your personal definitions.
Yeah, and I wonder if he's doing that, or if that
Right.
is he's doing that at the behest of somebody else. I can't believe that he's an autonomous bureaucrat. Is there such a thing?
Well, I'm not sure that he needs anybody to wind him up, is my point. I mean, this is a political talk show. We can say what we want. I'm not sure anyone needs to wind this guy up and say, okay, go. He really seems to be, completely capable of saying things like the 10% skim off the top's required. No, it's not. And he's saying this to them at the budget committee. Oh, as everybody knows, it's required. No, it's not. Other counties who have home rule charters, they don't do it. We didn't used to do it. If this is an emergency, we may be able to, if anyone cares to look into it, not skim the 10% off the top. This money coming in and given to it, they can't skim this money off the top. So where's this come from that Arthur O'Hare on his own is saying, oh, no, well, as everybody knows, this is necessary. No, it's not. Don't lie to us, okay? That's not just misinformation. That's disinformation, like this thing about the reason that Peggy Goodwin decided to change it from 1 million to 500,000. That's not true. It's not true. And there are people, like I said to Dennis Weber once, there are people who might actually believe you when you say these things. I don't think he liked that very much, but don't lie to me, because there are people that might say, well, he's a minister or this is a newspaper writer.
Right.
It's just not true.
Yeah, you know what, and that's what happens when they have this established thing there where they can put out whatever they want to, and enough of the people will buy into it to where it's not going to affect you politically, unless you've got some little gnat buzzing around your head, badcounty.com.
Oh, yeah, gnats in the room. Remember when Simon Hare referred to us as gnats in the room? Look, what it does is it restricts the dialogue, because here we've got, I've already given you the color analogy. Oh, we can only look at blue and red. Who says that we can only look at those two? The sheriff's looking at a number. We talked to him today. He's looking at a number of different alternatives about what to do. And so here we've got this guy, this finance director, was saying, well, as everyone agrees, no, as everyone agrees, this is the way that it's got. No. There's nobody that's saying it's got to be that, except for you and maybe these commissioners who want to sort of remain anonymous about what they've decided. They're going to end up doing this.
And all of the stuff that Arthur O'Hare is putting out there is stuff, talking points that they've already thrown out there to discourage doing this. Well, I'm not completely convinced they're going to do this.
Here's one of them. One of them is, well, as everybody knows, if you take this money and you put it in for a year, there's your hint, then it takes 9 months to train people. There's another hint, only if they're new. And then they'll work for 3 months and then they'll leave. Well, all it takes is common sense. I got some of that, common sense, okay? And all it takes is to say, well, then don't hire 4, hire 2 for 2 years instead of 4 for 1 year. Where's the problem? Well, what? Well, that's not a good answer.
That sounds perfectly fine to me.
It sounds like Keith Heck. But here's the there are ways around this. I mean, the sheriff's, well, maybe we should do 3 and 3 years, or maybe we should do 2 and 4 years. If we took that $1 million, even at this huge rate of 125 per deputy, that would give us two guaranteed deputies for 4 years. That's a pretty good deal. The levy was going to be 5 years. This is 4 years of guaranteed jobs. Now, where's the problem? As Arthur O'Hare once again is restricting the dialogue, and I don't see anybody, got their hand up his behind, making him say things. He's saying, he actually, when he was talking this, and you've seen the video, he's saying, well, and we could do this, and we could do this, and then I guess that we could, have two deputies for 3 years for 750. Now, hold on a second. How much money is there? 1 million. Well, two for 3 years for 750. There's a piece missing off of that, Arthur.
Yes.
What would happen if you had a million? A million? I never thought of that. Come on. You would have two deputies for 4 years. Now,
Right.
you
What's
could,
wrong
you
with
could
that?
hear him stop.
Listen.
You could hear him stop. It's almost like he was going to say that and then decide, whoa, I don't think I'm going to say
Yeah,
that.
but and here's the silly thing. That somehow is a bridge to nowhere. But a levy that funds it for 5 years, well, that's Shangri-La.
Well, and here's my favorite new saying. Oh, you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Okay, now I'm really tired of hearing that.
Yeah,
You're probably really tired of hearing me speak.
Totally dumb.
But what this levy was robbing from Peter to pay Peter.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's so dumb. It's like the kicking the can down the road analogy here.
Oh.
Well, listen, when it comes to government budgeting, it's all kicking the can down the road. They're
temporary employees.
Yes, this is none of it is. There is no thing that says permanent funding. It's
I like the sound effect there, Mike.
It's all you like that. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll have it on a card
graphics
for you.
later. Yes, right.
Yes. It's one of those things where, well, in the case, just as in the case of this $1 million that they're talking about. Okay, if you had two deputies, 4 years, what is the problem with that?
Right.
Do you not think that you can come along with something in the next 4 years to continue funding those two deputies for another 4 years?
And here's the smoke that you needed on that explosion. Here's the smoking gun. This $1 million, according to this redefinition of the entire dialogue by the finance director, this is not coming out of the $8 million or the $1.95 that's in reserves. This is new money coming in from the state. No, wait a minute. New money coming in from the state. What the heck are you talking about? Remember where there was no money coming in from the, well, we can't count on any money. This is $1 million? Well, that's nothing, Mr. Matthews. Oh, it may be nothing to you, but it's a lot to me. $1 million is suddenly, poof, comes and I did my own, poof, comes and it's available. Yes. And we're going to spend it on this. Well, would that ever happen again? Oh, no, we can never count on that. I'm not asking if we can count on it. Could it ever happen again? Yes, well, that could happen every year. Well, then we'd have 4 years, yes. 8 years. What?
Yeah, what's the problem there? Listen, that's why I think there's some confusion because the only thing that I've ever heard is that we're talking about road dollars here. And yet you seem to be talking about something which is not road dollars or not the same road money that we're talking about. So how did you get that impression and what makes you think that that's actually what's going on here?
By you, he means Arthur O'Hare, and it's got something to do with forest receipts and SRS. Oh, really? No, remember all of that spoken for already?
That's what I thought.
That can't possibly go any other place, remember? They're saying that we've got money that we can put our hands on, and we never have had that. It turns out, yes, we do have that. We've always had it. We told you that they had it. Oh, no, Mr. Matthews, you're just totally wrong. They actually laughed at us. Well, that's ridiculous. Now it turns out, oh, yes, they do have that.
Well, I think we need a little bit better definition of that.
Yes. Well, that would be nice. Now, from where is that coming? Right. From the Courier?
No.
From the commissioners?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes.
No, you know where it's coming. You
It's
know it,
coming
Mike.
here
You just
because
don't want to admit it.
Dale took some. Yes, I did, because
Yes.
Dale took some video, and it's on that video of them talking about it. So that's how we know.
It's coming from us. Now, if you want to go out and trust Kjo,
Ultimately.
it still hasn't happened there. This doesn't exist in their universe. If you want to trust in the Courier, why, that's 3 weeks late, but you can, and it's erroneous. There's false details. I mean, just completely false. Not just misinterpretation. This is not misinformation. It's disinformation. It's wrong. And it easily could have been settled. Could have talked with Peggy Goodwin. And if she'd ever talked to anybody, then they'd be able to find out what the case is. Okay. There's all kinds of things that could be done to settle this. You could talk with some of the people who've been suggesting, and this is both pro and con levy people who've been saying, oh, well, yeah, I like this. There's plenty of them. There's many more of them than one finance director that could possibly say something. But as Jim Moore pointed out to Mark Seligman recently, Mark had said something to Jim like, how come you aren't covering this story? You're not even doing it as a journalist. And he hung up on him. He calls Mark back and he says, if you ever say that about me not being a journalist again, why, I'll never quote you again. You'll never quote him again? Wait a minute. You're going to stop being a journalist? How will we know the difference, right? I mean, you're going to stop being a journalist if he ever insults you again? And I mean, you better get used to this, buddy, because you deserve a lot of it. That's my personal opinion.